Let's start out first with the Captain Obvious 5/7 to 1 idea. That's where we start off with a pure dominant 7 snowman chord and then get to some kind of 1 chord. I will remind you that it can be 5/7 to 1, but also 5/7 to 1 minor. Let's see this idea in the key we learned first, moving from our Captain Obvious G7 to C major. Then let's take a look at the equally Captain Obvious G7 to C minor. This same idea can be done in any key, but I don't want to overburden this video with too many examples. This brings us to another way to write our snowman chord, and I'm going to call this snowman chord the snowman that flips its hat. The top note gets crunched down a bit so that it is closer to the next highest note. The first thing you want to know is that flipping the hat does not change what we play, and it does not change what we hear. And this difference exists only in written notation. So when we do the Captain Obvious 5/7 to 1 or to 1 minor, we can't flip that hat. If you ever see something written with the flipped hat idea, it is a clear mistake. This is never correct, and you don't often get such clear rules in music notation, but this time is one that you do. If there is anything that you have not understood so far, go back to the beginning of this video and listen again, because you have missed something extremely important that you absolutely must understand before going on. Now comes the rabbit hole, and this is going to be one hugely complicated rabbit hole, so pay careful attention. When we flip the hat of the snowman chord, then we have something called an augmented 6th chord. Please believe me when I tell you that there is probably nothing more unimportant in the whole universe than this augmented 6th name, but the name gets used a lot, so you might want to understand what it means when pretentious people throw the name around. Flipping the hat means that the too short interval, the one between the bottom and the top note, gets a goofy name. The interval flips from a minor 7th to an augmented 6th, and that's where this crazy name comes from. It has nothing to do with what we play, what we improvise, what we arrange, or what we compose. It is merely a detail of notation. Nothing more, nothing less. One of the most basic ways this snowman with the flipped hat is used is in something called a German 6th chord. This country name came from nowhere, and it has nothing to do with either Germany or anything German. I'm now going to give you a very special definition of what this German 6th chord means to me. This is personal. In my teaching, it has nothing to do with what the chord looks like. It only has to do with where it goes next. It is actually a flat 6/7 chord going to a second inversion of 1 or 1 minor. Since that's what we hear, that's the only thing that matters. In its basic form, it has to have 4 notes, and it moves to another chord with also 4 notes. In the examples I'm giving, I'm always going to lower the bottom note a half tone and raise the top note 1/2 tone. The 2 notes in the middle will not move, and that gives us the German 6 sound going to a minor 1 chord. Notice that I am emphasizing the word sound. What the chord looks like is absolutely of no importance to me and should be absolutely of no importance to you. Now we have to consider 2 ways that we will see this chord in writing. The traditional way is to flip the hat before it goes to the following minor chord. This alternate look seems to be universally taught as the only correct written form. However, this way of writing it only looks well in some keys. So the greatest composers of the last few centuries have used this traditional spelling sometimes, and yet at other times they have totally rejected it for practical reasons, and this is exactly what I do. In my first example, the traditional solution for the German 6 sound clearly looks better. Avoiding an F-flat is almost always preferable, whenever possible. In my second example, the traditional solution for the German 6 sound still looks a bit better. By writing an F sharp, I avoided putting in 2 courtesy naturals. In my third example, the traditional solution for the German 6 sound has both pros and cons. I save writing a natural, but I have to deal with an E sharp, which is just not the easiest thing in the world to read. In my last example, the traditional solution for the German 6 sound is harder for me to read and will therefore be harder for other people to read. We might stumble the first time through reading it. I much prefer getting rid of that C double sharp and replacing it with a regular D. To sum up, the German 6th, as I teach it, sounds exactly like a dominant 7th chord, but it opens up to something that spreads, it expands. It has to go to a 1 or a 1 minor chord, and it has to have 4 notes. If it goes anywhere else, it's not a German 6th. This whole video is about the next chord. It is about the destination. It's about what it looks like on the page. It's about becoming a better player and learning to identify what you're hearing more quickly. Flipping the hat on the snowman chord is nothing more than a small tweak in the notation that in some cases may be more elegant, but that is absolutely never crucial. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Leave me comments about anything you like, comments about anything you'd like to see in the future, and remember that I consider all suggestions.